Welcome to my channel. Last week I shared my living room, family room, and dining room spring decor. This week I'm focusing on my entryway and on my kitchen. I mentioned in my last video that these lampshade covers are my newest obsession. I tried out making 3 different styles, and this is one of my favorite styles, this pleated style with the ribbon trimming, and I decided to make 2 matching ones to use for my entryway lamps. After dressing both lamps in these cute lampshade covers, I bring back an old favorite. It's this rattan woven basket that I'm going to use as the foundation for my spring vignette. I start off by positioning the larger objects first. So I'm using my Mozart statue, and this is a blue and white transferware vase in an Asian motif that I had just bought that morning at our local church sale for $2. Earlier in the day, I cut some branches from a flowering tree that I have in my backyard, and I thought they would look very lovely in this blue and white vase. Now that the larger items of my spring vignette are in place, I start bringing smaller items to layer. Of course, for me, books are always a must, especially old vintage books with pretty spines and covers. I try different colors and arrangements until I find one that I like. I thought this mini metal cup would be the perfect addition to the tray. The shape reminds me a little bit of those vintage trophy cups, and I thought it would look very pretty with a glass of water inside and some hyacinth blossoms that I cut from my front yard. I thought that added just the right amount of color. And of course, you can't have a spring vignette without a bird's nest. This is a nest that I found in my yard after a severe thunderstorm, and it still had the eggs in it, so I've had it for several years now, and I always like to incorporate it. I put it in this little brass bowl and place it on top of the books, and I thought that that was a nice addition, especially under the branches of that beautiful flowering tree that I put in the vase. And now it's time to stand back and admire my efforts. Now that the entryway is done, I turn my attention to the kitchen, and I decide to start on the wall shelf by placing some stoneware plates that I have on one of the shelves. I usually try to pick a theme for my wall shelf every season, And for spring, I decided that I was going to use my ceramic chickens. So I picked out a few of my favorite nesting chickens to incorporate into the rest of the decor. For the little server I have under the wall shelf, I brought in the first chicken that I've ever thrifted. This was the first thing I actually thrifted for my house when we moved in about 23 years ago. And it's the most adorable little chicken. It's ceramic, it came with this little nest, and it also came with these eggs. So this is how I found it in the thrift store. Miraculously, nothing was broken. It was just like that. Of course, it was very dusty. I brought it home, I cleaned it up, and I usually keep it by my sink so that when I'm doing the dishes, I get to look at it. It always puts a smile on my face. And now my favorite part of spring is taking down the doorway curtains. These go up in December and they usually stay until about March, the end of March. But this year we had a very cold spring, so I left them up longer. I have them on tension rods so I can put them up and take them down very easily. And they do a really good job of keeping the heat in the kitchen and in the family room, which are the two rooms that we spend about 80% of our time in the winter when we're home. I use two velvet curtain panels from IKEA, so they're very inexpensive. So here's the final result. Several areas of the kitchen remained untouched. For example, the coffee station, the area around the stove I didn't do anything with. Those areas are heavily used, so I prefer not to have too much decor, just for practical purposes. So I really focused my efforts on the wall shelf and the area by the sink, and by putting that pretty embroidered tablecloth on the kitchen table and the hyacinths inside the soup tureen. And I feel like I added just enough little touches to make the kitchen look spring-like without going over the top and spending too much time and really no money at all, except for the hyacinths that I bought, but everything else I had already. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you in the next one.